Hey there, and welcome to my review for the ASUS ROG Ally. This review will be the easy mode review, meaning it will be a more simplistic and approachable review for the casual user. We'll touch on all the different functions and features of this system, but in an easier to digest way. And with that in mind, let's dive right into this review. So getting into the technical specs of the ASUS ROG Ally, we have a 7-inch Full HD 1080p display. It's at a 16:9 aspect ratio. It has an IPS level display with a glossy finish. It's a high refresh rate anti-screen tearing display. It has a 40 watt hour battery, so with that you can expect between 1 and 3.5 hours of battery life. It has the brand new AMD Z1 Extreme processor with 16 gigabytes of onboard RAM, 512 gigabytes of storage capacity, AI noise canceling microphone, 2-system speaker with Dolby Atmos. It has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity, USB-C power supply, and 608 grams of total weight. Alright, so now we're going to take a look at the design of the ASUS ROG Ally. It's a very sleek looking device. It's very lightweight and comfortable. It has contoured edges along the corners that help fit inside your palms nicely, which is especially nice during some of the longer gaming sessions you'll probably have with this thing. Taking a look at the back side, we've got a dual air intake with the ROG logo on this grill and some funky reflective tape here. You got two buttons here that are programmable to whatever you like. On the top, you have a 3.5mm headphone jack, SD card reader. You got the XG mobile connector here for the external GPU support, as well as a USB here, which is meant for power and transferring data. You have the volume rockers here, and a power button with a built-in fingerprint reader. There's some unique buttons on the front as well here, which we'll get a little bit into, and it's rocking a traditional Xbox style layout. And with that, we're going to take a look into our next topic here, which is controls. Taking a look at the controls of the device, here we have a circular D-pad, we have analog sticks, analog triggers, which are pressure sensitive. So for those of you who are unaware, what that means is in certain games, such as racing games, where pressure dictates how far or how hard something goes, such as acceleration or brakes, the level at which you depress it gives you that next level of immersion that you don't get from traditional digital buttons. And then you have your regular face buttons, X, Y, A, and B, similar to the Xbox layout. And it has built-in vibration, so anytime you're in a game and it vibrates like it would in a game, it vibrates on the device. It has built-in motion controls as well. However, at this time, they're currently not implemented officially through the ASUS software. And here we're going to show you the difference when it's stacked up next to traditional controllers. Here we have it stacked up next to an Xbox One or Series controller. So very similar layout. Here we have it next to a PlayStation 5 controller. So the difference being the thumbstick placement is not staggered. And here we have it stacked up next to the Nintendo Switch Pro controller, where you can see the layout's fundamentally identical. Only difference is minor variances in the D-pad and the face buttons are different. If you want a closer look and deep dive into the controller comparisons between the ASUS ROG Ally and all the controllers of the next-gen console stacked up against it, I highly recommend you stick around for the hard mode review where we do a much deeper dive into the control comparison. Okay, taking a look at the software on the ASUS ROG Ally, it comes with Windows 11 built into it. So you get your traditional Windows experience on here. Take that as much of a pro and con as you will. It's a Windows experience in a handheld form factor. So in order for ASUS to help circumvent a bit of the cumbersomeness of using Windows on a touchscreen / controller based device, they have what's called the ASUS Armory Crate, which is toggled by pushing this button here. So when you press it, you should see is your game library. And so here it auto-populates all your games for you. So anything you install, whether it's through Steam or Battle.net or whatever launcher you're using, it will automatically populate on here to give you a bit of an easier time navigating this. You can add third-party applications as well to this if you so choose, depending on your level of tinkering that you like to do on your devices. And so aside from the game library, you get access to a bunch of different settings here. So here is a control mode setting that lets you adjust the controls, whether on your desktop mode or gamepad mode, and it'll show you what each button does alongside those. And from here as well, you're able to adjust the operating mode, which, depending on the level of performance or battery life you're trying to achieve here, this will help you get to achieve whatever it is you're trying to do in that regard. Here under the content section, you're able to see screenshots, things like whether or not you need updates to your device or not, as well as other really technical things you don't really need to mess around with. Maybe if you need the ease of use, you can download your extra game platforms from here, but otherwise, this probably is not a section you'll navigate too often. So getting out of Armory Crate, we'll go into the ASUS Command Center next. So from here, it's a very quick and easy way for you to manage all the little settings that you need to manage on your device without having to jump through hoops to do it. So you can adjust your brightness here, your volume here, the performance mode you're using is also adjustable through here. So depending on whether you're playing a high-end game or a low-end game, or you need more juice to get your game running as much as you want, this is how you quickly do it. You can automatically switch between control mode or desktop mode, but most of the time, by leaving this on auto, the device will take care of it for you. You can check your stats of your game if you like, if that's something you're into. You can change the brightness around the LEDs on your analog sticks through here, and adjust resolution on the fly if you so choose. Going back to the PC experience on this, you get access to the Xbox application here, which comes with 3 months of Xbox's subscription, where you're able to get access to all the Xbox games that are supported by PC on the Xbox Game Pass. So you're able to claim 3 months of that. So nice little bonus you get just for buying the ROG Ally. And with that as well, most people are probably just going to use Steam. Through Steam, you're able to navigate it traditionally or go through the big box mode or big picture mode, as they call it. That will let you navigate through all your titles in a nicer space than you would traditionally. And if most of your games are on the Steam ecosystem, perfect. It's all there for you. If not, you can always add them as well. And if you want to get a bit more customizable, you definitely can with this. It's a Windows PC. So for instance, I have something like Big Box here, which is another front end basically to populate your titles and organize them as you choose. And if you get into emulation and that kind of thing, it's really nice and handy for that too. And that's something more we'll touch alongside in the hard mode review of this section. So if you want to explore that a little more, learn a bit more, feel free to stick around for the hard mode review of this software section of the ROG Ally. Okay, so now diving into the gaming aspect of this, which is what we're all here for. We're going to start things off here with a little Sonic Mania. We're going to be running this in silent mode since it's a smaller title. This will help maximize your battery life and also the noise and heat that comes from the device. As you can see, this looks amazing on this display. Colors pop, everything looks really beautiful. It runs silky smooth, all at the lowest power draw that this device offers. Playing something like this, you'll probably get anywhere between 2 to 3 hours on this. I would say on the higher end, but just know when you're playing games like this, you want to adjust your power draw to be on the silent mode so that you can really maximize your battery life. There's other things to consider, such as whether you have your Wi-Fi turned on or the level of your brightness and stuff. And that's all things that you get to decide based on your play scenario and what you favor and prefer. So all these things are there to be kept in mind, but overall, running these kind of games on the ASUS ROG Ally, they look and run amazing, and you will not be disappointed with it. And here we have Vampire Survivors. So this is one of those games that will really take advantage of the high refresh rate screen smoothness. This is something you'll notice in especially the smaller title games like this or Sonic, where things just look and feel the smoothest they possibly can. That's in part to the nature that these games are not very difficult to run, and they don't even take that much power to achieve high fidelity. So things like this, you can run and experience super buttery smooth gameplay as well as pretty good battery life. However, if you do want to conserve your battery life a little more, you would want to restrict it so that you don't have to take advantage of the full refresh rate of this display, because doing so makes your console work a little bit harder to push out that extra smoothness, and that means less battery overall. So up to you how that goes. That's all adjustable within the settings here. This is how you would do it, just for those who are unaware. This is what dictates the level of smoothness, the refresh rate. So that's Vampire Survivors. It's looking and running as good as it possibly can on here, and you'll have nothing but a great experience, especially on the smaller indie titles or easier to run video games on here. So with that, we'll move on to something a little bit heavier. Okay, next up we have Sekiro. We're going to do stuff that's going to challenge the console a little bit more now and be a bit more taxing to run. So this, we are definitely not running in the silent mode. You have to bring this up to something like performance or turbo. Here we're running this game at 1080p medium settings, and you can see it's looking and running really great. This is probably the most preferred way to play these kind of games because it's the perfect balance of visual fidelity and performance that you're going to get out of a handheld console like this. You can see, yeah, it's performing pretty well. If you want to take it up a notch just a bit more, you can hit this and go to turbo mode. In a game like this right now, the way we have it set up, the performance doesn't really jump up too much. What this will do is help you with any dips and stuff you might get while playing. However, that comes at the expense of your battery life. If you're running this game turbo mode, or pretty much any game for that matter in turbo mode, expect to play only for about an hour or maybe even 45 minutes, depending on how grueling the title is you're playing. So double-edged sword using turbo mode, but you can get by just fine by playing this on the performance mode. Next up, we have one of the heavier hitting titles we have on the PC platform right now, in my opinion. It's Final Fantasy 15. We're running this game at 1080p here, and we're running it at average settings. So if you're in performance mode, you'll get respectable performance on this. Depending on where you are, you might see some dips, and that's just the nature of playing a big high-end game like this on the performance setting. You can drop down the graphics. I personally would like to play this game at a mixture of low and average because I feel like that would be the best overall compromise. However, to keep things simple for this video, I'm just showcasing these things in 1080p in like a medium setting type scenario. So you're getting around 30 FPS like this for the people who care about that kind of stuff, but I've been trying to keep this more geared towards the casual consumer for this part of the review, just so you get a general idea of how the game looks and feels. If you want a really deep dive on resolutions and frame rates and different things of that nature, I'll definitely explore that more on the hard mode section of this review. But performance mode, you'll be able to get by. This is a bit more of a populated area from what you'd expect from typical gameplay, so it does hurt the frame rate a little bit. It does run a little bit better in the open fields when you're exploring. But this is one of those games that'll definitely benefit from putting it on the turbo mode. This will give you probably around a 10 FPS bump, and you will definitely notice the difference in smoothness. But again, you will definitely notice the hit on your battery life. So if you're close by to a power outlet, totally fine, but I think performance mode is a good enough balance here if that is a concern that you have with this. Another thing I'll quickly mention is when you're playing these titles, when the device is actually plugged in, what will happen is on the performance profile you're on, whether it's performance or turbo, the Ally will actually get a little boost in performance from being plugged directly in. So if your games aren't running as good as you want, having it plugged in, such as like when you're docked to a TV or something, or just on your couch beside a power outlet, you will get a little extra bump in performance that way as well. So your performance mode will be even juicier and your turbo mode will be even more smooth than you had experienced before. So that about does it in terms of the gaming benchmarks that we have for this. Real quick before we finish this off, I'm going to show off the performance of the sound of the speakers, and I think this is the best game to showcase all that right now because this game has truly phenomenal music. So we will listen to how nice and clear and loud the speakers get on this thing, and I'll tell you right now, they sound great, especially for the form factor that they're in. So here we'll unplug this, and then we'll turn the volume up and just have a listen for a little and see what you expect from this. So as you can tell, it sounds really, really good coming from these speakers. You don't need to put the volume up that high. I'm just doing that for demonstration purposes, but usually I sit somewhere around like the 20 or 40 mark max, and it does more than enough than I need to hear these and experience everything really well with this device. On the subject of sound, we've been running in performance mode, and I'll bring this closer to the mic so you can hear, but it's really not all that loud, which is a really nice thing about this device. You know, despite the heavy hitting titles we're throwing at it, it runs quite cool and sounds very minimal with the exhaust fans, which is something that really they knocked out of the park with this. Running in turbo, you'll definitely hear it a little more, and we'll give it a sec to kick in and you can hear the difference. Last but not least, we're going to test this out now for outdoor viewing performance, so you can see what it's like for those of you who like to travel outdoors and play outdoors. So I feel like a lot of people online aren't really showcasing that, and this will be a good way for you to get an idea of what to expect when playing this outside. So here we have some outdoor gaming performance. We're running at the max brightness level here, and the game is very easy to see. This is a really good experience for playing in the outdoors. It doesn't feel like any detail is lost in a huge capacity. Obviously, being outdoors does hinder the viewing experience a little bit, but out here in the sunlight right now, it looks really good, and I don't really have any problems playing like this at all. Again, it is a little bit more dimmed. However, this is a very serviceable way to play games outside and not have any issues with major glare or loss in clarity. So here we are at the final weigh-in. given everything that we've gone over so far, I feel like the design of this console is very nice. They did a really good job on how everything is laid out and implemented. The tech specs on it are really good as well. It runs literally anything you throw at it. It's just a matter of how you want to set up your playing with it so that it can work optimally if that's something you really care about tinkering with. The controls are very responsive. They feel really good. No complaints in that regard. And the software is as good as of an experience you can get at this time on a Windows handheld. So it's not perfect. It is a little janky and hard to navigate at times. However, with the ASUS software they have baked in there, they do help give you the best experience you can possibly on Windows, as well as Steam's big picture mode. So you're not totally held back by the limitations of the design of Windows. You do have options, and it is a pretty good overall experience in that regard. And gaming performance, this does reasonably well, especially if you play games only in 720p. All the stuff I've shown you so far has been at 1080p, just so that you get an idea of what to expect when things are just running natively out of the box. It's quite serviceable at 1080p, and it does a really good job playing all new and old games. So when it comes to performance in a handheld form factor, I'd say this is a really, really good handheld. And on top of it, the fan noise is absolutely minimal, which is an incredible thing to have in something like this, in this form factor. And playing it outside, the screen does really well at showcasing how well it can handle everything, because outside at max brightness, it's still quite easy to see what you're doing. And what it really comes down to for you is if it's worth the price. Coming in at almost $900 before taxes retail, it's quite an investment. But at the same time, if you're a kind of person who wants to have all the games you want and own all in one place, this is the handheld to have right now. It does it all. It's all nice form factor. It's got a beautiful design, and it does everything you expect it to do. And it has room to push it far beyond if that's something you do require and want in a device. So, in my opinion, if you have no handhelds currently, this is an incredible device to pick up today. I don't want to get into other comparisons of anything else out there in this video. So for what it is, I'd say this is an incredible buy, and you will not be disappointed by the level of performance you get out of something like this. If battery life is something you're overly concerned about and use it in a highly transportable setting, then it's something to be a little concerned about whether or not it's worth it for you. However, battery packs are a thing, and they can help circumvent that. Or if you're in a scenario where being plugged in is available to you, then that also helps mitigate that limitation. It's just a matter of what's your best use case when it comes to purchasing this piece of hardware. It's really difficult to just give a recommendation as a yes or no, because this is an awkward time where these devices are super powerful, but they're also kind of limited by their battery capacity at this point in time. So really knowing all the information you can regarding this is your best tool to understanding whether or not this is right for you, because it all comes down to what you need at this point. Because at this point, we're not at a point where it does everything all in one, maximum power, maximum battery, maximum specs. Like this is a very, very good first attempt by ASUS, and it hits a lot of high points with it. But again, it just comes down to you reviewing exactly what it is you need and your use case to justify the purchase of this. If it works within your limitations or what you're willing to do to play this in your use case scenario, you will not be disappointed with it. This thing games, and you have everything available to make all the games you want to have happen at your fingertips with the ASUS ROG Ally. If you felt this review was helpful for you in any way, please consider liking the video or sharing or subscribing. And if you want just a little bit more to review for your own personal needs, there is the hard mode review of this where we dive a lot deeper into all the things we touched on earlier, and it'll give you a much better idea of what to expect when buying the ASUS ROG Ally. Thank you for watching.